So this is our first Thursday one of these. So we had our first one on Tuesday morning. So the idea of this is just to take in your questions, talk about whatever issues you want to talk about, and go from there, and just sort of address what's going on. So, what kind of questions you coming to the table with today? You're going to treat it just like Professor Office Hours. The door is open. Come on in, have a seat, and tell me what you want to know.
Oh, anything CMMC related, right?
You want to know what's on the test, right?
So let me run past you what I've put together and kind of what we're sharing with customers right now, and then just kind of get you a little bit of feedback.
Cool.
We're in the process right now of going through all the 171 technical requirements and mapping them over right now to Microsoft 365 Gov tenant. We've got a GCC High tenant with Azure Gov subscription, and so we're mapping these things in right now and actually saying, okay, we're going to have an Intune policy that disables or prevents USB ports from writing anything out. They can read, but they can't write. And if you want to be able to write, you have to be in a specific your specific device has to be in a specific device group that is allowed to write with BitLocker encryption. The external storage has to be BitLocker encrypted with a password applied to it. So
and the specific device is identified as authorized, and et cetera. Yeah. Okay.
Exactly. Gotcha. So we're kind of going through those steps right now, of down to the configuration line item level to address, each technical requirement, SIM, the whole shoot match right now. And what we're doing what we're talking to customers about, let me share my screen here with you. So we've always talked to customers about doing what we call secure enclave, and I think you may have heard me talk about this before, where we build the box in Azure Gov, GCC High, we put AVD in place, file servers, Active Directory, your typical environment. We do it all in a box in the cloud, and nothing has access to the box except a managed device. That's it.
Okay. Yep.
Okay. And that's where your CUI sits. As we've been talking with more and more companies that have been coming to us, and we just had a call Tuesday morning with a cybersecurity consulting firm that works with Homeland Security, Navy, Air Force, all the main agencies. And the method that they've been working with right now is they get sent a laptop and they can work on that laptop, and then all the CUIs within the entity's space, right? So with that in mind, we're like, okay, well, that's, the kind of CMMC light version where you say all of our CUI is going to be stored in a GCC High tenant.
Yeah.
The device is going to be known and managed, and so is the user. So that's kind of the light space. So if you've got a 100-employee company, but 5 employees are going to touch CUI, need to work with CUI, you can go this light route where you don't have servers, you don't have anything like that. You're just got a managed device wherever that device might sit in the world, right?
Yeah.
And this is the method we used. And so it's kind of a low cost entry point into it, but then you still have all the controls.
It's sort of the most simplified environment.
Yeah, and it mimics what's already being done by the agencies already.
Yes.
So that's kind of what we're talking on the light side, and then, like I said, the secure enclave, and then the next level up is when you're full hybrid. You've got a manufacturer with on-prem and cloud, and you're just going all in with everything.
Yeah. So you got a combination of the on-prem infrastructure and the cloud-based infrastructure all coming together. Yeah.
So do you see, just that glimpse, any process, any problems with that kind of a methodology, especially
No,
the
I
light
mean,
one?
I think that's what that's what I'm seeing out in the community a lot, right? Is that even the folks that are maybe have even a more complex environment are trying to simplify it down to that point because, like you mentioned, they may be a large organization, but they it's a very small subset
Yeah.
of the organization that actually has to deal with CUI and the
Yeah.
CUI contracts. Yeah, the only thing where people usually fall apart when they I'm just all 100% cloud based, and then you start to talk about them during the scope call. So, yeah, well, do you ever have to print? Oh, yeah, well, we just have a couple of printers back in the headquarters, and so if somebody needs to print, they just print there and come get it.
Yeah.
That
No.
also now we're okay. Now we got an on-site inspection going on. Now, how do you isolate that? Wow, what's the print server? How's that all work?
Yeah.
Is it connected to the rest of the network, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what got like a 40,000 person company in problems.
Okay.
So we're 100% virtual, except that we have this.
Yeah. Yeah. So once printing, that's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If you don't have any printing, fine. If you can keep it all up there, fine. But the minute you go to share information, how do you get it in and out? Just watch it while your data flows. How do you get it in and out of the environment? How do you take new stuff in? How do you send it out?
Yeah. I think
sure
getting in and out, I think there's going to be the migration component. Most of these entities are going to be migrating, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they've got they're taking a subset and they're just going to do this initial move that's going to be in. So that one we're not going to really have to worry about. It's the one where you're ongoing, where you're exchanging information, right?
Yeah.
And getting the controls in place there. So what we've done in our method here is we've said, okay, when we're setting up a new tenant, a new GCC high tenant, we're going to create we're going to disable, we're going to restrict external sharing to a specific group of individuals that are allowed to do external sharing. So authorized users.
Okay, good.
We're going to create a team, a Microsoft team, and that team itself cannot invite external guests in. And even in GCC High, you can only invite other GCC High guests in anyhow.
Right.
So we're also going to restrict which domains you can do external sharing with. So even if someone that did have the ability to approve external sharing,
mm-hmm.
they wouldn't be able to do it because the domain that they're going to share with isn't on the list yet.
Gotcha. Yep.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So we're putting some controls around that, and that's where we want to put the CUI initially. When you bring it in, drop it into this bucket. Okay. And then there's the controls around the external sharing, and then how to external share. That's a process that I think will have to be worked out with each customer. One method that we're talking about right now is to use a third-party ITAR approved organization that air gaps from your production environment to the external sharing piece. So if you do want to external share it with somebody, an approved authorized individual has to take the data and transfer it to the other location, right?
Yeah.
Secured file transmission.
Yeah, something like a Prevail or a Kiteworks or
file
something
share.
Like that.
Well, not Prevail, but file share. I'm not convinced on Prevail yet.
Good.
Sorry.
Me neither.
I will say XQ because I think XQ checks all the boxes. And the nice thing about XQ, and we're in really close conversation almost a year now, and we're at the final paperwork stages with them right now. I think we can plug XQ into a GCC High environment and get all the controls we need for external sharing.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the time where if XQ can get through like FedRAMP equivalency or get FedRAMP or something,
or at least get through a full assessment certification.
Yeah, or at least one
with a customer,
full assessment,
right?
Yeah.
I think that would be the case because the cloud storage location is still in Microsoft. It's still sitting in a GCC high environment. So it's at rest there, and it's not only at rest, but it's also at rest encrypted, so not even a Microsoft person can see it.
Oh, okay. So okay, even though so inside of their Azure environment that they built their servers in, that's the only place that it is.
Yeah. So your ITAR
Okay,
still
so you get
sits
some benefit for that.
within your box, your certified box.
So
right?
it's
but
not
when
like
you go to
just
external share it,
yeah.
you use XQ as an additional layer of encryption, and
Okay.
it gives a full audit trail of every time the file was touched and opened. You can do geofencing, and at any moment in time, just go bink, remove access.
Yeah, that's good to hear, because I think it's been a while. I know Shell had brokered a meeting with them, and it's been a while since I sat in on that meeting. But at that point, I think they were talking about it can be in Microsoft commercial.
Yeah,
but
they can't be in commercial. They're saying commercial, but it can't be.
No, not really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, they you have to go to GCC to guarantee U.S. citizen support.
Yes. Even if it is encrypted while it's there, the DoD is saying right now that even if it's FIPS validated, cryptography and the data is there, but when the data is sitting on a server somewhere, that server, is considered CUI and therefore has to be protected.
So you've got to go to G, and that's what I've told Brian at XQ. I said, I understand where you're going, but I'm not going to tell a customer that they can do it in commercial. It has to be minimum GCC for CUI and high for ITAR. So, so that way at least you have the foundation. But then use them as an external sharing mechanism, because you get the additional layer of security. You still keep the CUI in your bucket, but you can still externally share and do it in a secure way and have a full trace, audit log trace of absolutely everything.
No, I like it. I like that option. I think that sounds really good. So it'd be, like I say, it'd be good to see it in action. Would love to.
We've actually set up a demo environment for it, and then have proved it to work in GCC High, so we know it will work.
Of course, when I say I'd like to see it in action, that means I want to see it go through an assessment.
Certification, yeah. The other company we're working with right now is a company called Tosney, or Toz now, and Toz, they do similar things to XQ, but they have cloud-based storage that they utilize, and they're going to be using AWS Gov for their space to do cloud-based storage. But they give you a whole bunch of other things that XQ doesn't do. So I think there's going to be one of the two will be a fit. Toz is further out. They've probably got another year before they're going to be certifiable. Just because they have to change their encryption method. They don't have a FIPS 140 encryption algorithm. And but they're cool because they've got a great track history in the fact that their technology came out of a DARPA project 20 plus years ago that our government agencies use today for cryptography between themselves.
Okay.
So they've got they have a unique story to tell. So I think there's a couple methods for external sharing is kind of my major point that we can get to that still protects the data as it's being shared externally, but keeps it for the most part within their own bucket. So we're working kind of through the nuances of that right now, and I'll let you know what the result is.
Yeah, I mean, don't just make sure they understand, because I was just an hour before this meeting, I was walking through a company that had gotten beat up in an assessment because they had FIPS validated cryptography. It wasn't in FIPS mode, so they were using all the right algorithms, but they hadn't turned on the modules.
How easy is that? I mean, just really,
and
just
that's
turn
all
it on. It's not really. It's not like it's impacting or anything.
No, they just need to go and they need to flip it on. There's a couple of things that apparently it breaks. on a certain some of their systems, but
Okay.
they think they have a solution for it. So
Yeah.
they're in their POAM work off phase.
Yeah.
And yeah, they had a joint surveillance assessment that didn't go as well as they'd hoped. And so I'm walking through all of the controls with them that they missed, so they can go back to the C3PO for a reassessment. So, yeah.
One other one that we had a question on is if you're in Azure Gov and you've got virtual network, virtual servers, the whole thing, it's all sitting in an ITAR compliant environment. Actually, it's even higher than that. It's DoD compliant environment because we're sitting in those same data centers. You're using essentially a virtual network, but there's no switching that you have access to, or you don't have access to that layer, because it's a platform you're sitting on top of.
Yeah.
The question came up by one of our team members was, do we have to capture the network, the communications between devices within that virtual network? Like if you take it on, so that came from, if you're on premise, right? You've got network switches and a firewall.
Yeah.
In that scenario, you've got to at least capture some syslog data, even though it's not super valuable. You got to check the box, right?
Yeah.
And so that data can be a large volume of data, and to run it through a SIM like Microsoft Sentinel can be extremely expensive, which could impact a small business that has one server and a couple of virtual desktops, right? And then to capture all that traffic. So the question came up, in the virtual space, in a known compliant environment, do we still have to capture that through what they call flow logs, which is a lot of communications? And the concern is cost.
So it doesn't say you have to record everything. It just says you have to specify what you're recording. But yeah, those network connections would still be have to be monitored. Because they're inside the environment that you're setting up, right? So you don't have to monitor the communication between the Microsoft servers because Microsoft's doing that.
We don't have access to that.
That's part of their FedRAMP. That's you inherit all that from FedRAMP. But for the stuff that you're setting up inside of your virtual space, you would have to be capturing, monitoring the communications.
Okay.
Now, it doesn't say you have to capture all the logs of everything that's going on. It just says you have to monitor communications. And that might be session establishment.
Well, here, let me throw you this. Okay. So Defender for Endpoint, which we're obviously going to be in, Defender for Cloud, which is basically the server brand for Defender for Endpoint. Okay.
Yeah.
Same product. Defender for Endpoint, no matter where the device is, on-premise, cloud, virtual machine, whatever. Okay. Defender for Endpoint captures all of the communications, all the session activity, every file that's open, every DLL that's touched on the local machine. So all the activity on the local machine and all the communications that local machine has to outside of itself, right? Any device that it talks to, whether it be on the internet or on the LAN. So all that information is captured, and Microsoft stores it for free for 180 days.
All right.
Okay. If we take that information and we run it into Sentinel, which Microsoft doesn't charge you for any log storage, they just charge you for the processing of that information. If we're just talking Windows computer to Windows computer and Defender for Endpoint is on, and we're capturing all that information, would that subsequently qualify?
It sounds like you're for that in that scenario. Yeah, it sounds like that would qualify fine. It's but that's not talking about the server.
That's not the network layer, right? That's just talking But that's what we're talking about, is those devices talking across the network. As long as we're capturing the communications between the devices, and we're using Defender for Endpoint to do it.
Yeah. Well, are you talking about the virtual devices as well? Is that capturing?
Yeah, the virtual devices as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No, I think that sounds like it would do it. I mean, on the surface on this discussion, don't you think? Yeah, Matt, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, in the assessments that I've been on, that's exactly how they've done it, how the OSCs have done it, and it has been sufficient.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Then I can tell my guys, no, you don't need the flow logs on your Azure VNets.
Ah, gotcha. Yeah,
You know,
yeah. That sounds like it's like you don't have to do packet layer, packet level capture of everything that's happening.
yeah.
It's just a certain types of data.
So Matt, on the local LANs, where you've got switching gear that you do have access to, do you know what level of syslog is being? I mean, I'm assuming you have to capture syslog data, right?
Yes, yeah, you would have to set up a syslog server, send that out there, and then up to Sentinel.
Okay, and there's like 7 layers for syslog. From I think it's informational to debug. Do you happen to know what layer is the minimum requirement?
So what I've seen is informational and above. Debug isn't generally necessary. I mean, the more information you can put in there just to be safe, the better. For like a research standpoint, if you have to actually track something down, then obviously the more information you have in there, the better, because you can get a little bit.
Yeah, but the more information also increase costs too. So
Yeah,
it's a balance.
Yeah, so the litmus test, right, is if I can find it real quick in my book, in the AU controls, right, you're basically specifying what you're capturing, right? So as long as you can trace back to individuals, actions to individuals, and that are indications of all this long thing, illegal activity or whatever it is, just basically undesirable activities. As long as you trace all that back to individuals, you are fine. You specify what you're going to send, what you're going to review.
Yeah, if it has to go back to the individual, Defender for Endpoint would be sufficient, because it's going to know everything that every person did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it doesn't say you have to, so in 3.3.1, right, you're going to specify the audit logs needed, event types to be logged to enable monitoring, analysis, and investigation and reporting of unlawful or unauthorized system activity. Right. Okay. So that's the litmus test, right? As long as you can show that if something bad happens, I can trace it back. I can capture the logs and I can trace it back to an individual,
Yeah, I'll have to. You said 3.3.1. Okay, I'm gonna go read that.
Yeah. I mean, there's the thing about CMMC. Well, the thing about NIST standards in general, they don't specify the level of detail of much of this stuff, right? I mean, so 3.3.2 is user accountability. So that's just basically the trace it back to the individual part, and then 3.3.3 is review and update logged events. So that just says that whatever that set of logged events that you're currently recording, which is up to you to decide what it is you're going to record and take up to your SIM or look at it in a printout copy if you're silly. Right. You specify what that is, and you're looking at it on a periodic basis. Decide, is this giving me the information I need? And if it's not giving the information I need, then you change what you're collecting, right? And you make those changes, right? So that's kind of the way. And so the progression through the audit controls, it kind of is kind of going along with that. And then and correlation is another thing. So you're got enough data that you're actually you're correlating events from system 1 to system 2 to see if there's any kind of things happening across the environment.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But again, there's no specified thing. It doesn't say you have to, go down and, do packet level capture and, all that stuff. It's just, you really just have to.
Yeah, because most of that data is hard to disseminate. anyhow.
Yeah, and it's not going to
the
be useful
activities
for the
going
sim.
on the device.
Yeah, I mean, in most cases, if you fed that into the sim's going to just it's going to be on the Bitbucket floor anyway, because it's going to be meaningless to them in their analysis.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's really hard to capture some of that stuff. Well, it's not hard to capture it, but it's costly and it's not always valuable.
Right. Right.
And because I used to work for a global financial company, and going through, we had a conference room, dedicated auditors,
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
And
there's always a team of
12
auditors in there, right?
Yeah, one of those checkboxes was, oh, are you capturing network traffic, syslogs? And back in the day, in the 2000s, sure. There was, antivirus stuff, and the stuff that we have, the tools we have today doesn't really capture that.
Yeah, you could fit that on a floppy drive. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's really kind of the balance of it. So what I'm hearing is in a lot of these is we can define, we document what we're going to capture.
Yeah.
But the end goal is really to be able to make it traceable to a user activity as it relates to the data.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll have to go back and sweep through, because I'm sweeping through right now and creating our Fortify process for 365. We're obviously going to be extending it into the full hybrid mode and on-premise and group policy and Active Directory and Windows servers and the whole shoot match. Because we want to create a good baseline for our customers. And with our focus on the SMB, or tight focus on SMB, we obviously want to make it portable, right?
Yeah.
We don't want to scare people away.
Yeah, their total cost of ownership you don't want to go twice as much as the cost of. We had one
this morning that we talked to that, they do they do documentation for 3 major airline manufacturers. And it's the technical documentation. Some of these manufacturers will make a plane that's designed for commercial, and it ends up being used by retrofitted for the military. Gotcha. They receive information, but they haven't been told. There's nothing yet that they've seen that says, has a cover page that says this is CUI, right? And so they're like, well, we have a feeling this is coming. And I go, yeah, it probably is.
Probably is.
But it's like, they get $100,000 a year's worth of business for this type of specific work. That ends up in a military plane, and they're like, this is adding to our costs. And I go, well, those manufacturers are expecting those costs to go up. When you're not seeing the requirements now, but the moment you do see them, you're just going to have to tell them that, hey, our costs are going to have to go up because we have to bring in this additional layer of security that we don't currently have. Yeah,
well, and they might as well do it now, because if they haven't started seeing the attacks already, right? So the airline manufacturing industry is ripe for lots of activists coming at them to try to find stuff. So if they're not getting attacked now as a supply chain source, they're going to.
Yeah.
So they might as well just protect their business, even if it's
well,
not
they're doing
CUI.
a great job of protecting their business. They just haven't had the CUI requirement on them yet.
Yeah.
And
but
that's
it's not a bad idea
what
is just lump everything into that bucket and protect the whole darn thing and get it going.
Yeah. Well, they're going to carve out probably a few engineers and create just a GCC high space for them to put their data into once they start working on. Once that requirement hits them, and that's why we were talking about this light environment for them today. And they were like, "Oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
That'd be a little easier."
So, yeah.
Good.
Okay.
Good.
Cool. Well, those are a couple things that were at the top of my mind from this week.
Well, that's good. That's fun. I like that. I like talking through those things. Yeah. Matt, hey, Steve, Mike, you guys got anything? Steve, go ahead.
Yep, this is Steve. So I'm a road warrior once again. I was explaining Brian earlier that I'm going from one kid's practice to the next, so I'm very limited. Before I had a laptop, I'm on my phone. Mike, thanks for sharing. And I like looking at how others are approaching managed services in this this ESP world that we're going to be in.
Yeah.
I mean, how are we looking at that? And I promised that I would preview our model. I'm laughing because I didn't realize I can't open up Visio on a mobile device anymore.
Oh.
iOS. So I had to get one of my teammates to convert it to a JPEG. So I'm going to share my screen really quickly, but I'll go into detail just showing you the model that we're using, trying to make sure we secure not just our resources as we go through our CMMC journey, but making sure that we don't cause our customers' boundaries to be extended, or we're not the reason why they get in trouble. So I'm going to preview that. Hopefully y'all can see it, and don't have much more than me get to share from a mobile. So hopefully this presents well to you guys. You should see this now. This is purely
It's coming up.
boundary.
Yeah, there it is.
The boundaries.
Okay.
So 3 customer boundaries. Everything is in their enclaves, separate enclaves. We would. Sorry, you can't see us. We're on the left side of the diagram,
Okay.
where we have our own Entra ID instance, and we have a B2B relationship for each of the customers, where everything is basically ACL ruled in. These vetted resources that are named in our, so that we don't violate 3.1.1, 3.1.2. So our named resources that are named in their environment can access their environment. They're required to hit their CIMFA or conditional access to get MFA'd in to PIM up to access a cloud PC. So all work as if we're walking onto an old SCIF or an old client site. All work is done within their boundary. Nothing can leave their boundary because of the security policies on those AVDs or sorry, those cloud PCs, depending on what implementation each customer has. So essentially, we're sending the technical resource on site to work in their environment. Nothing can leave. Nothing can be copy pasted based on policy. Obviously, you can't stop somebody from using a phone, taking a picture of a screen. Hopefully, you don't have that data exposed because the policies the customer has in place in their tenant prevent that. But nonetheless, that is both the physical and the logical separation to prevent a customer green to get data to get into red to yellow, customer to get into our environment, and to prevent our resources from potentially, intentionally or accidentally accessing data they shouldn't. And just I told you I'd show that architecture for what that looks like and what we're doing. So just wanted to preview that, and then I'll bring it back up next week when we have more folks. But just hey, what flags? I mean, architecturally there shouldn't be any issues, but what flags do you see or
So I have a question on this.
Yes,
on the and in your blue box to the left there, is your
Yes.
team using AVD?
So no, we're using, well, yes, we do, but that's different. Our resources that are in our environment, we have assets, but our assets cannot touch a customer's environment. The only way we can get across that boundary is our asset uses the B2B. So essentially, Steve has to try to authenticate to customer A, and when he authenticates, he gets as an external identity. He has to abide by all the rules there, and he has access only to the cloud PC. So I am essentially an identity in their tenant, bound by their rules. No different than I walk into a military site to do my work that day. I get
So your team is using a cloud PC in their environment.
Yes, the customer is putting a cloud PC instance up for each of our resources. It does not cheap. I mean, it's whatever. It's
I know.
Additional $40 or $60 a month. But
are you remoting into that cloud PC?
Well, we have to. Everything's in their boundaries.
Yeah,
so it's everything. It's then we can't even get out. We can't even copy data out, even if we wanted to, by policy.
So Brian, the way these work is a cloud PC. When that's a Microsoft Windows 365 cloud PC is what it is. Okay, so it's a licensed device, and Microsoft brokers the connection within the GCC Hyatt world or the Azure Gov world. So it's a fully brokered connection already on Microsoft's platform that's already been authorized from a DoD perspective. So that's the cloud piece that PC that they're using to connect into. The other question that pops into my mind, I understand the B2B connection, and I understand that way you've got only certain identities can get into the customer environment. The question then becomes the device that your team is using. Are those devices Intune managed by your environment and your environment certified?
So yes, our environment is certified. So answer your first question you asked, and I realize now why you said it a second way, because I did. So yes, we come in from a AVD instance that only allows connection out to the other AVD instance. So it's a dedicated resource, almost as if the customer sends us dedicated instance to another dedicated instance. We basically had to put so many layers and walls to ensure that nothing could penetrate, and everything is audited by Azure logs, which obviously are going to their log analytics workspace. We can just see the trail as to where our identity tries to sign in. So everything is audited, tracked, trailed all the way throughout. And now how we're doing it today, we're actually using a license and a user account in their tenant. We're actually going to start using the B2B. We've been using B2B since 2022. We haven't done it for MSP purposes yet, but that was the one of the customers said, "Well, why do I have to pay for a license for you all when you all actually wrote the blog on B2B?" I said, "Well, we don't have to. You're right. It's a great question. So it's a managed identity, regardless." And I said, "The tools and the technology are there." I said, "I just wanted to make sure when I talked to, some other folks in my industry and my community that I can't see any reason why that wouldn't pass an audit, because I do mind us not passing the audit, but I'm more concerned with our customers.
It's a managed licensed identity within
Correct.
your certified tenant with a B2B connection over, and they're using your managed identity within their environment
Versus their
to get access to their cloud PC, and not incurring a license cost for your team.
Correct. It still does requires the shared usage. So the licensing, they still have to pay for a license seat to access it. It's just a user versus our tenant versus their tenant.
Yeah.
So technology-wise, it works flawlessly. And today we've been using, the customers been buying a license, and they're like, "Well, why do we have to continue to pay for this?" And I said, "You don't." And that's what I was talking.
No, you don't. We'll just add it to your MSP cost.
You already know. But that was one of those things where you have an option, and I said I would share this architecture, and if anybody had questions, and this is doing these policies is all that pretty much all.
I understand. I understand what you're doing. We actually have been doing essentially the same thing, where we just get a P2 license, an Entra ID P2 license for the customer's
P2
environment
versus your that's all you need.
And then they give us a cloud PC, and we just jump into it, and that way the cloud PC is licensed, and we're good to go.
Yeah, my only question to that is, it said I think it said support group users, support group members, but is it down to an individual support group member?
So down to the individual. Yeah. So it goes by user ID. So by the
it's named individuals.
So it's not a group account. It's not a shared account. Correct. It's an individual account. If you have the whole
graphic, you would see it differently. But yes, an individual account. Each individual user has to be allowed entry, and that's how it's tracked, audited to make sure it's a named user, and you know who the user is.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to preview that, and I'll have the whole diagram. I have the basket.
No, that's good.
Yeah.
It's like
we do basically the same thing. We're not doing the B2B piece right now. We're making the customer pay for it. But yeah, the B2B would be an option to help reduce the custer's cost. But Brian, users go into groups get assigned to things.
Yeah,
so
it's really just a method to remote in then, right?
So it's a way for them to use their identity, because when their IT, so let's, as an example today, one of the problems you would run into with putting a user into the customer's account environment, creating a unique ID in the customer's environment, is you forget to disable that account when an employee leaves.
Right.
And by doing it within their own tenant and doing the B2B connection, the moment that users are disabled, they're disabled in all their customer tenants automatically.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's pretty slick. That's a pretty slick way to do it. That sounds good. Yeah.
Look at control.
I like that.
Yeah, no, that's the route we're heading. We're not doing that today, but that is the route that we're heading also.
Cool. Yeah, that's good. I like this because we're getting some best practices out on the table. So this is excellent.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Steve.
So,
Brian, I'll bastardize some of the names, and I'll share I don't mind sharing the asset out. So I'll wipe out anything that can say company name, not like our company or anything. That way I don't mind these assets being shared, because the reality is we're all here learning.
Oh yeah, this is a small community.
Yeah.
So by Tuesday I'll have it ready.
Hey, Matt?
Yeah, so I have not personally seen this at all, but I know we're going to. I wanted to see what your experience has been so far with organizations that have Macs, because there are no MDMs that can manage Macs that are FedRAMP. Intune cannot do patching on Macs that are Apple Silicon. There really just isn't a good way to like manage them. So I'm curious if you've seen any environments that had Macs that have actually passed a JSDA so far, and how.
Yes. And they're using what's it called, Jamf.
Jamf, yeah.
Yeah,
that's Jamf, the most common tool today.
Yeah,
And
Jamf,
that-
Adigy, and Kanji are like the three big ones, and none of them are FedRAMP. And
No, they're
from the
not.
conversations I've had with them,
They won't
they are
be.
not planning on it at this time. Adigy is
No.
thinking about it, but
Okay.
I mean that if they're thinking about it, that means they're still at least 18 months out.
So the Mac environments that I assessed, well, they weren't total Mac environments, but they had Macs and they were using Jamf. At the time, they passed, and that's because basically it was considered security protection data, security protection asset, the Jamf piece, and that was not in play for being FedRAMP at the time because that was pre-December of 2024. 2023, pre-December. So that was before the proposed rule dropped that bombshell on us. So they passed their JSVA, but I don't know that they would today.
You can patch with Intune. I'm looking at it right now. Critical updates, firmware updates, configuration file updates, and all OS built-in app updates on Mac through Intune today. I can put the link. I can put the link
Is
in
that
the chat.
is that new? Is that a new ad for Intune, or is that it's been around?
When you said it, I'm like going, this is October of this article is October of 23. So it's been around for a little while. The other piece of that, and sorry to interrupt. The other piece of this is the application patching that is outside of this. You run into the same problem with Windows, right? How do you patch the apps that are on the device, right? To do that, MSPs use an RMM tool. There are no RMM tools that are FedRAMP moderate right now that I'm aware of. That are out there. There are tools like Patch My PC, okay, for example, that do integrate with Intune, that is a executable and installable service that you put on a Windows computer. So you can run that service within your environment, so your certified environment, and patch those device and then document, because it's an automation account that has to touch devices, right? And Intune's involved. So you could do that for Windows PCs. I don't believe it covers Macs though, but I'd have to go check.
Yeah. Now, is Patch My PC self-hosted, or is that a cloud service?
Yes, self-hosted.
Oh, okay.
I use it for my home PC all the time. It's great.
Nice. Yeah, the Mac situation is just something that we've started to come across a lot more. And I know that we have some JSVAs lined up that are Mac environments. So, and just Mike, since you weren't here in the Tuesday meeting, just a little bit of background on me and the organization I'm with. I'm with M&S Group. We are an MSP primarily for government contractors. We are also a C3PAO, and I myself am an assessor. So I kind of see both sides of it.
Awesome. You get all to do all the fun stuff.
Oh yeah,
on both sides. Right? Good. Yeah. No, I think it is going to be an increasing challenge, right? Because we're going to have more and more environments. Like I said, I think 2 of the 4 joint surveillances I was on did have Macs, but like I said, it was prior to people being too, the DoD was not all uptight about the security protection assets being FedRAMP. So now, especially if of course, if the final rule stays on that track, which rumor has it that the DoD is being super overly paranoid, and it will stay that way. So I think we are going to have some challenges with future, unless they can use something like Intune. If that works now for the Macs, then great. Then that's what we're going to have to recommend.
Yeah. Right now we're telling customers no Macs.
That works until their CEO wants one.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. We're having that issue internally.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, it's the
I have that issue internally. I want my Mac back. But
of the things we have to live with. So
Yeah.
Well, let me throw if it's a managed device. I'm just thinking out loud. It would have to be a managed device connecting to it. I was just thinking if you on your Mac, if you were connecting to a Windows, like a cloud PC, would that matter? It's not to be a managed device. It still have to be patched. So it's not good compromise. Yeah. Okay. Just thinking out loud.
Yeah, and then also comes into what comes into play there is remote connection, because I don't know. Can you use what do they call the remote connection for Intune Suite? It's live help or something like that. Like, I don't think that works for Macs either. I think that's Windows only.
I want to say that's coming though. That's on the roadmap.
It's supposed to be coming, though. It's on the roadmap, and I'll have a lot to say about this whole Mac conversation on Tuesday. Like, a lot, because there are some things we're looking at, and it'll last more than the couple of minutes we have left. So let's just open up the door with Macs and compliance in general. And
there you go.
I've got a lot that I've discovered and I've had to learn working with quite a few contractors and agencies the last couple of years down here.
Yeah, good. Yeah, they're not going away.
Yeah, let me see if I have the calendar invite for Tuesdays.
You should have it. You should have it.
I got the Thursday one, but I don't have it for Tuesdays. So
maybe I don't
forward that to me.
Maybe I don't want to hear from you on Tuesdays, Mike. I don't know. Well, let's see. Which time zone are you in?
Pacific.
So look at 6 a.m. See if it's there.
I'll have to follow it, and you guys record.
In other words,
and let Copilot take care of it for me, right?
Well, so we are going to put the we'll take all of the fodder at the beginning and the end of these meetings. We are going to post all the videos from each of these up on the site. I'm putting a Copilot generated summary out there. So I am taking a look to make sure it doesn't do something stupid. But
as long as you Copilot these things, and that would be fantastic.
Yeah, luckily I can. I was telling sharing with some I had with Shell. I was sharing with Shell and Matt Lee, the board of directors, and right before that, I was trying to record the board for my first board of directors meeting. I'm like, why is transcription grayed out? Why can't I do this? I didn't know you had to configure the dang thing. It's like I'm a cybersecurity geek. I'm not a Windows admin. So it said contact your admin. I said, well, crap, I am my admin, so I'm in trouble. and so I'm struggling through this. I'm spending hours trying to figure this out. And then I'm talking to Shell. I'm like, I said, I just, had this epiphany. I'm sitting here. I'm got this organization. I've, dozens of MSPs have joined who do this for a living every single day. Did I consult with a single one of them? No, of course not.
And they would have just jumped over the fence to help you, I'm sure.
I know Matt tried to help me while he was off to vacation, and he was sending me stuff. I was like, I don't understand any of this crap you're sending me. I don't know. Yeah. But finally, Bobby Guerra actually piped in and helped me out.
That's good.
So he got me then. So we got it back on track. So it's a nice tool. I liked it the first when we used it.
Yeah. We got it the first day. As soon as it came out, we just jumped right on. We got our whole team. Everybody just got it.
Nice.
And then I just did a webinar a week before last, and I've got another one coming up in July. Just cover the basics of Copilot, what it is, and how to use it, and how to start with it.
Cool.
And it's
send me an invite. I should sit in on that.
Yeah, and that'd be great. We'll send out. We'll let everyone get the link out to everybody, so you can, if you want to join, feel free. But it's just the basics, The one big thing that we talk about there is how search is changing and what Microsoft is doing right now. If you all are not aware, Microsoft is right now in the process of removing natural language search from all Microsoft 365 tenants. And they're just going back to keyword search, just really limited. And the reason for that, the reason they're doing it is they're putting they're creating a semantic index for every Microsoft 365 tenant, regardless if you have a Copilot license or not. So essentially what they're doing is they're transitioning every customer to what I call semantic search. So you get semantic, natural language, and keyword with all of that, right? Because it's the top of the heap.
Okay.
And the reason they're doing it is when a customer purchases a Copilot licenses for their Microsoft account, they want them to have the semantic index there already, because initially when you bought a license, it took 2 to 3 weeks for the index to get built, depending on how big your tenant was, how much the information was in your tenant. If you're small, it was fast. If you're big, it could take a long time.
Yeah.
So they're saying, we want the customers to have a great experience right out of the gate. So that's what they're doing.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so customers that are concerned about, oh, we don't want to buy a Copilot license because it's going to expose blah, 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 blah. Like, oh, no, it's exposed. It's already exposed. Copilot may make it easier to find, but it's already exposed.
Yeah.
And your people may have not found it or haven't told you that they found it yet. So get your AI, HR policy in place, and guess what? Semantic index is going to be the new search. Go look at Bing today, and you'll notice you get a Copilot response at every search.
Yeah,
well, guess what? Every search engine is going to have the exact same thing.
Yeah.
And,
well, they pretty much
Google
all
will be
do now
next.
anyway. Yeah.
Yeah.
Google does it too.
Yeah. So that was the one kind of like epiphany that I gave to people, and we've been working directly with the Microsoft 365 Copilot team in Redmond. Actually, I'm going up there tomorrow and meeting with the head of their team. And a couple other people on the worldwide team, because and I'll mention this too, just a kind of a heads up. We have a process for cybersecurity hardening Microsoft 365 tenants called Fortify, and it comes in 4 different levels. And Microsoft is going to be paying for that hardening process that we do on any customer.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's big. That's huge.
Yeah, it's huge. So
congratulations on that.
Just
that's
giving
great.
you a glimpse into the future. So we'll be talking about this more, and this will be for commercial or GC. It doesn't matter whether it's gov or not gov.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, we're right at 6 o'clock. So I think I'm going to cut it off.
I still got 2 more hours. It's just beginning of happy hour for me.
I know. Well, I was on a call right before this, so I have no happy in my happy hour right now. So
you need a refrigerator in your office.
Yeah, there needs to be a happy in my hand.
Phil, mine's here, but it's empty. Right now.
There you go. Well, I have that too, but it's boring stuff in here right now. All right, guys. Well, thank you very much for joining, and we'll see you next week. I hope
next one.
And
have a good one.
And and make sure you're getting on Slack there and piping in on things. There's some. Oh, you
Slack.
have happy.
Why
Steve,
Slack?
that's not fair,
Teams?
man.
What's wrong with Teams?
That is so wrong, Steve. That is so wrong.
We're in a Teams meeting. We've got Copilot involved. We could just have a chat right here, right?
Yeah, that's right. All right.
Just saying.
Yeah, okay. I'm cutting you off. See you later. Bye. Take care.